brilliant speed with vibrant service. Vibrant broadband internet.
All right, we're going to interweb our way across the room, and we'll get the Vibrant U team on the air.
We are on the air. Thank you for having us, Woody. My name is Shane.
I'm Jane.
And I am Nathan.
And a couple months ago, we talked about buying a new TV. I think it was around Super Bowl time.
Probably, because that's when people need new TVs.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. And, I don't know if you've ever bought a brand new 4K TV, you hooked it up to your internet, and it started buffering.
I don't even know what a 4K TV is.
Well, we're going to explain that in today's show.
You're coming to the right place.
Exactly. So TVs have improved over the last few years, and did you know people upgrade their TVs more often than they upgrade their internet?
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe that.
And we're going to tie the internet screen size to your internet speed in this show. So bigger screens equals higher resolutions, and that takes more data. So let's talk about how TVs have evolved and why internet speed matters more now than ever.
So you know the old wives' tale, don't stay so close to the TV because you're going to ruin your eyes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, the reason
Still
why...
say that to my daughter every day.
Well, it's a myth. So why they did that? What was the first TV? How big was it?
It was like tiny.
I don't
Yes,
know.
it's
7, 8
about the size of a tablet. So you're looking at 7 to 10 inches. So when people watch TV, I'm sure they only had one TV, and they all gathered around and stared right in front of the TV, right? So that's the beginning of how the TV came to be, right?
I got a
And
little
then-
pop quiz for you.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
TV size, if it's a 55-inch TV, how is that measured?
Diagonal.
Yeah,
Yep, diagonal, corner to corner.
Yes.
People think it's the height or the width, or it's nope, it's corner to corner.
I've been told size doesn't matter. So.
Conversation for another day.
La, 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 la. All right, so the 4:3 aspect ratio. So basically, you're looking at it 4 units wide by 3 units high. That's how that was discovered there. And then it was also in black and white. And I remember The Wizard of Oz was such a big TV, or it was such a big movie because it was half black and white, and then the latter half of it was in color. So it was a big deal.
Polarized.
Yes, polarized.
So when she gets to Oz, right?
Yep.
Oz is in color.
No place like home. So basically, how the early TVs worked is they had electron beams scanned even and odd lines. Shane wrote this.
Can you
not
really
me.
break that down for us, Jane?
I can break that down. So,
Not a chance.
You tell him,
so
Shane.
a cathode
And it
tube,
doesn't matter because that was back then.
Yeah.
right? A cathode tube, which is kind of like how the TVs were deep back then. They were kind of boxy.
Tube box TVs, yep.
There's an electron beam that would scan across the screen in lines. So it started at the top and just keep making lines all the way down, and it would be 480 lines tall. That would make your what's called standard definition. Yeah, so that's how it started.
SD TV.
SD TV.
And that ratio, is it that ratio that you give us the message was say this has been modified to fit your screen?
Yes.
So
from
that
wide
happened in the 90s with the 16:9, right? 4:3 ratio is the original ratio because that's what the TV cameras were built for, and so the screens were made that size.
So it reduced the flickering and wanted everything to stay smooth.
Right. When you scanned, it would scan every other line, and then that would reduce the flickering that you might see in the picture, and then make it look.
And
smooth.
then the largest TV back in the day was 27 inches, diagonally measured, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, 27 inches in this day and age is a tiny TV. If you had that in your house, it might sit in your kitchen counter or something, somewhere in a small space, but most people aren't regularly watching on a 27-inch TV anymore.
Really? Okay.
I
Well,
say
actually,
most
it's
people,
probably
okay?
It's probably your computer screen.
Yeah, maybe computer monitors are often,
It's about
27
the
is
size I
about
got
right.
at
Yep.
home.
Yeah.
So then, Jane was talking about the 4:3 kind of size. Then 16:9 is kind of the newer one. That kind of in the 80s and 90s they started to engineer TVs with this ratio in mind, and that like changed that. That's kind of where everything was being used to being in 4:3, and then when 69 came out, when you watch DVDs or videos at home that say this has been modified from original size to fit your screen or whatever. And you'd have those big, missing black sections because it has to fit in your much bigger TV. So with this with bigger screens and this aspect ratio, it became need for better definition screens, essentially. This is kind of when you started seeing the invent of flat screen TVs with your plasmas and LCDs. They were able to generate much higher quality video. This is when 720, which is high definition, and then 1080, which is ultra high or full high definition. So 720 and 1080 became more of the standard, and then with this, the TV screen sizes also became larger. 720 screens were 32 to 37 inches, and then 1080 screens are even higher than that, where we get our 55-inch and our other higher screens. Those became more popular in the 2000s. Like I said, flat screens. Almost every TV now since then is going to be a flat screen, much lighter. I remember as a little kid in the 90s when we moved a TV. I was always moving a TV from one room to the next, and it was those giant boxes. I'd have to have a couple of us kids muscle them away. Nowadays, TVs weigh almost nothing. It seems like anybody can just pick one up with one hand and move it from another room, even if it's one of the bigger ones. It became flat screen, higher definition, and larger screen. And like Shane said, the larger the screen get, the better quality you're going to need.
Exactly. So now let's talk about 4K. So like 480 is your standard definition. 720 lines, that's the next step up. That's high definition. Full high definition is 1,080 lines tall. Okay. 4K doubles that. So it's 2,160 lines. So that just means the picture is sharper, but it's a lot of pixels. So 4K is noticeably sharper at certain distances and on larger screens. So screen sizes started around 47 inches for the 4K. And they went to about 55 inches. And this is in the mid-20 teens, right? Well, now 60 to 75 inch is pretty common in 4K. And a fun fact, streaming is what's driving the popularity of 4K. Because without streaming or an internet speed that can handle it, you just couldn't get that. Because over the air or even satellite, they're still at 720, and if you're lucky, you get 1080. So they can't even push 4K. So streaming is what's pushing 4K. And that's because higher resolution takes more bandwidth. And we'll touch on that in just a little bit. But even though it's 4K, the aspect ratio is still 16:9. But now I'm going to get a little sciencey on you. Sharpness is not about resolution alone. It's about resolution relative to distance. So at 20/20 vision, your eye and brain judge sharpness based on how large a detail appears on your retina, not how many pixels or dots are actually there. So once that detail falls below what your eye can resolve, more resolution stops mattering. So here's an analogy. A magazine is printed at 300 dots per inch. That means in 1 inch wide and 1 inch high, it's 300 dots. So 300 by 300, that's 90,000 dots in 1 square inch. But you're reading that magazine at 8 to 10 inches away. So you see that image as being really
Depends on whether you have your cheater glasses on or not, how far away you're reading that magazine.
20/20 vision, right? So
that's true, okay.
That's what cheater glasses, they give you that 20/20 vision at that distance, okay? Now let's talk about a billboard. So a billboard, they're printed at 10 to 30 dots per inch. So in that same inch, it's only 900 dots. Compare that to 90,000 dots. But you're seeing that image from 50 to 200 feet away. So your eye resolves that image just as sharp as what a magazine is at 12 inches. Okay.
So if you got real close to that billboard, it would look
then you would
much
see
worse.
it would look blurry. It'd look grainy because you can see all the dots, right? But the further away, it looks sharper. This all will come into play as we talk about TV screens. Right, Nathan?
Yeah, so more and more people are trying to basically get that cinematic or movie theater experience in their home. I can be guilty of this. And when in my new home I moved into, I kind of made like a theater room in my basement, and I started doing some research about what size screen I need and how far my couch away and stuff like that. Now, I am a huge believer in the movie theater. I still recommend everybody goes to the movie theater. I think movie theaters, unfortunately, have struggled over since streaming is becoming more and more popular. And now a movie comes out in theaters, and you'll be able to watch it at home, usually like a few weeks weeks after, which is not helping the movie theater business, but I digress. But when it comes to, there is a science behind the size screen you have in the room you have, how far you're going to be sitting, what resolution you need. Like Shane mentioned, and the further away you get, the bigger the screen or the more resolution you might need for that image to look sharp. So there is kind of rules to this. For example, if you have a 55-inch TV and you're 8 feet away, 1080 pixels or 1080, in quality is just about the right size. 4K will look noticeably sharper, especially with text on the screen. But again, if you get a smaller screen or you're sitting closer to the TV, it won't be as noticeable. So there is kind of rules. At 10 feet away, a 43-inch TV, so a smaller TV, a little bit further away, 1080p will look a little bit not as sharp. A 4K will make a bigger difference, for sure.
Right.
So for those of you writing this down, at 5 feet away, the kind of the optimal thing is a 55 to 65-inch TV and 4K quality. At 7 feet away, you want a bigger screen, 65 to 75-inch TV, also in 4K. And if you're sitting 10 feet away from your screen, you may need that TV to be 75 to 85 and in 4K. And this is, again, to capture that cinematic experience where the screen you're looking at is taking up virtually all your visual, all of your eyeballs space, essentially.
Yeah,
We call it performing. We call it performing at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you watch a movie or a movie like, say, 6 to 8 inches away from your face on your iPhone. You notice the phone, you notice the screen, you notice everything around it.
Peripheral
right?
vision around you, yep.
The cinematic experience lets you immerse in that picture.
But the screen's taking up most of what you can see.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you go to a movie theater, the screens are obviously ginormous, and when you're looking at the screen, you're really not noticing much on around it because they're trying to get you to kind of immerse yourself in what you're watching. So if you're making a movie theater at home, a cinematic, theater room at home, there are rules you can look up for. Okay, my couch is this far from the screen. What screen size do I want? And stuff like that. It's kind of interesting for sure.
So like Shane had mentioned earlier, 4K streaming is definitely driving more of the 4K, and that's exactly kind of what's happening now. So TV is being watched more through the internet connection, and now more than ever, we need a reliable internet. And people that have cable or satellite don't get that true quality of that 4K picture. So the standard definition only takes 1 to 3 megabits per bandwidth, and then high definition takes about 3 to 5 megabits. So by the time you get to 4K, you're looking at 15 to 25 megabits. So you need really good internet. And then, incidentally, if anybody has 8K,
Yeah, that's
The future.
which is
that's up
super
there.
large screens, it takes between 50 and 100 megabits per second.
Yeah, there's a lot of internet packages that can't even get close to offering that. So
Yeah.
you want to stream at home, you may not be able to do it.
Yep. And so every jump in resolution doesn't just improve the picture, it multiplies the data, like Shane was mentioning over there with
Exactly.
all of his math.
Yep. Putting this all together, screen size, screen resolution, distance from your couch, this is how 4K becomes the standard. So 1080p used to be the standard up until recently, and within the last 6-7 years, right? 4K is now the standard, and that's kind of what engineers were going for so your eye doesn't see all those pixels, it doesn't look blurry, everything looks nice and sharp at certain distances from your couch. This could not happen without high-speed internet and high bandwidth. This is what allows 4K to become mainstream. So streaming services will adjust based on your resolution and your bandwidth as well. So you might have a 4K TV, but if your internet can't deliver that, Netflix is only going to push out 1080p or even 720. So your image is going to be blurry if you don't have the bandwidth to do it. So if you don't have a high enough or fast enough internet speed, you'll still only get regular high definition and not 4K, even though you have a 4K TV. So this is why it becomes important. As screens get bigger and sharper, the internet connection behind them becomes part of the picture.
Yep, for sure. It's a lot to take in. If you have any questions, if you're interested in talking about what's internet speed you need, certainly reach out to us. Something to mention too, we have a Dreaming of Streaming event coming up on May 13th. That's Wednesday. That's what, 3 Wednesdays from today, I think. So May 13th, that'll be at our office, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And member and subscriber appreciation day is the following week on May 20th,
Yeah,
Wednesday.
join us there.
So yeah, if you're a member of the co-op with electric service, you have Vibrant Vibrant service, please stop on out. Bring your family. Free meal. There's bouncy
Wattenhofer, pork
houses.
chops.
Yep. Pork chops.
Awesome.
There's a petting zoo.
Bounce houses. Yeah, that'd be
You'll
good.
get a free keychain.
You'll probably get lots of free stuff.
I can tell you what the
No.
I'll tell you later.
Keep it
You're in a
secret.
surprise. Okay.
Yeah.
All Meeker members and Vibrant subscribers are invited. Absolutely, come on out, bring your family. And like I said, if you have questions about today's show, about your internet, is it fast enough? What do I need to do? Give us a call. We're local, 693-3231. You can visit our website, vibrantbroadband.com. There's a lot of great information on there. If you missed part of today's show or want to check out some of our other radio shows, check us out on Facebook or YouTube. Just search Vibrant Broadband. As always, listen live on Wednesdays, KLFD at 10:30. Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, KLFD, for hosting us every Wednesday. Thank you for listening. If you catch the radio show, please let us know if you run into us. My name is Nathan.
I'm Jane.
Yeah, I'm Shane.
Tune in next week for another Vibrant You Live.